At my parents' anniversary party, my stepsister's revenge exposed years of lies and secrets no one expected. So I don't even know where to start. This all went down last weekend at my dad and stepmom's 20th wedding anniversary. We had a huge celebration at this fancy event hall. They rented out white tablecloths, gold decorations, a buffet, live music, the whole deal. Everyone from both sides of the family was there, and honestly, it was one of those events where you expect it to just be boring small talk, too much wine, and some awkward dancing. But nope, my 19-year-old stepsister Karen had other plans. Now, a little background. Karen and I have never been super close, but we've always had a mutual respect. She's my stepmom's daughter, so technically we've only been siblings since I was like 10. Karen is smart like scary smart, but she's also the kind of person who doesn't forgive easily. I should have known something was brewing because she'd been acting weirdly quiet leading up to the party. Anyway, the anniversary celebration kicks off. My dad's giving a speech about 20 years of love, honesty, and partnership. Ironic now, and people are clinking glasses and tearing up. My stepmom, Linda, is sitting there beaming in the sparkly silver dress, holding his hand. Karen, meanwhile, is sitting stiff as a board at our table, not even pretending to smile. Halfway through dinner, Karen suddenly stands up. Like no microphone, no announcement, she just clears her throat and goes, "Actually, I think we should toast to the truth tonight." Everyone kind of laughs nervously because she has this dead serious expression. My Aunt Diane whispers to me, "Oh God, what's she doing?" Karen continues, 20 years of marriage sounds nice, doesn't it? Except when it's built on lies. The whole room goes silent. My dad looks like he's just swallowed a lemon. Linda tries to shush her, saying, "Karen, sit down, this isn't the time," but Karen doesn't move. Instead, she pulls out her phone and starts reading. Apparently, she had gone through some old emails and bank records. Don't ask me how girl is basically a hacker. And she discovered that my dad had been sending money regularly to another woman. Not once, not twice, but for years. She also had screenshots of messages that hinted at something way beyond just helping a friend. People at the table started whispering, some gasping outright. My Uncle Jeff muttered, "Oh," and under his breath. I just froze, because while my dad and I aren't super close, I never in a million years expected this. Karen wasn't done. She turned to my dad and said, loud enough for the whole hall to hear, "Do you want to tell everyone how you've been lying to Mom for almost 2 decades, or should I?" My dad's face turned beet red. He tried to laugh it off, saying, "This is ridiculous. Karen, put your phone away." But she wasn't backing down. She raised her glass and said, "Here's to 20 years of lies and congrats, Dad." The silence that followed was deafening. The second Karen dropped that bomb, it was like someone had pulled the fire alarm in the middle of a church service. People were whispering, gasping, some trying to act like they didn't just hear what she said. My stepmom, Linda, sat frozen for a few seconds before her face just crumpled. I swear I could see the exact moment her heart broke. "Karen, stop this." Dad barked, standing up so fast his chair screeched against the floor. But Karen didn't flinch. She just stared at him with this look of pure rage like she'd been rehearsing this moment for years. Then my grandma, bless her 80-year-old soul, goes, "What's she talking about, Michael? What lies?" And the entire room turned to my dad. He tried to smile, but it looked more like a grimace. "It's nothing, Mom, she's exaggerating. Just some misunderstandings with finances." Karen snorted. "Misunderstandings? Sending money to your mistress for 15 years is a misunderstanding." You could have heard a pin drop. My Aunt Diane gasped so loudly people at the next table looked over. My cousin Mark whispered, "Holly," and immediately started recording on his phone like this was a Netflix drama unfolding live. Linda finally stood up, her hand shaking. "Michael, is this true?" Her voice cracked. She looked at him like she didn't even recognize him anymore. My dad sputtered, "No, well, it's complicated. She was a friend who needed help." "Help with what? Hotel bills?" Karen snapped, shoving her phone in his face. "I've got the receipts, Dad, literally." The atmosphere went from awkward to explosive in seconds. My Uncle Jeff stood up and shouted, "For God's sake, Mike, just admit it. We've all heard rumors for years." That set off even more chaos. Apparently half the family had heard whispers, but no one ever told Linda. And poor Linda, she looked around the room, tears running down her face, whispering, "Everyone knew, everyone but me." I felt sick to my stomach. This wasn't just Karen being dramatic. This was a grenade going off in the middle of what was supposed to be a celebration. Then it got ugly. Dad stormed over to Karen, trying to grab her phone. "You don't understand what you're doing," he hissed, but Karen yanked it back and shouted, "No, you don't understand. You destroyed Mom's life, and I'm done watching you lie to her face." The DJ, poor guy, didn't know what to do. He awkwardly lowered the music that had been playing in the background. People were either filming, whispering, or straight up leaving their seats to get closer. Linda finally raised her hand and said in this icy tone I'd never heard from her, "Stop, right now." Everyone went dead quiet. She looked at Karen, then at my dad. "We're not doing this here, Michael. Sit down, Karen, enough." But Karen wasn't finished. She muttered under her breath, "This isn't just about tonight. This is about everything you've been hiding." And that's when she dropped the second secret one I never, ever saw coming. After the first bombshell, you'd think the room couldn't get any heavier. But Karen, oh no, Karen wasn't done. She took a deep breath, looked around, and said, "Since we're all being honest tonight, there's something else you should know." My stomach dropped. Everyone, I guess, family, even the waitstaff paused mid-step, sensing the tension. My dad's hand started shaking and Linda gripped the edge of the table like it was a lifeline. Karen pulled up another set of messages on her phone. This time, it wasn't about money, it was about lies that hit way closer to home. "Dad," she said, her voice a little bit cutting, "do you want to tell them yourself, or should I?" He opened his mouth, stammered, and then closed it. Karen rolled her eyes and started reading aloud, messages from my dad to his so-called friend over the years, emails, texts, even some voice notes she'd managed to get onto her phone. But here's the kicker, in these, he'd been covering up a second family. Not just secret gifts or trips, but a literal other life, another woman, a kid almost the same age as me. The room went completely silent. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. My stepmom's face went pale, her hands trembling. My Uncle Jeff just sat down hard, muttering, "Jesus Christ, this can't be real." I couldn't breathe. My cousin Mark started whispering to my Aunt Diane, "Wait, are we actually seeing this?" Everyone was frozen in shock, some gasping audibly. Dad's face was red now, not from embarrassment, but from pure panic. "Karen, you don't understand, this isn't what it looks like," he yelled, but no one was buying it. Karen shot back, "Oh, I understand perfectly. You've spent years pretending to be the perfect husband and father while living a double life, and tonight I'm done pretending to." She looked at my stepmom. "Mom, you deserve the truth." Linda finally found her voice, shaking, barely audible. "Michael, how could you? All these years." Her sobs echoed through the hall. Then Karen did something even bolder. She turned to the guests. Everyone here deserves to know what kind of man was celebrating. She started showing parts of the messages to the tables around her. Some people were whispering. Others were literally stepping back, horrified. I could feel the room shift. People were no longer celebrating, they were witnessing the unraveling of 2 decades of carefully hidden lies. Karen didn't stop. She looked directly at me and whispered, almost in a tone of warning, "This is just the start. They think they've gotten away with it, but not anymore." At the moment, I realized Karen's revenge wasn't just about ruining the party, it was about exposing every lie my dad had built his life on. She wasn't impulsive, she had planned this meticulously. And suddenly, it hit me, the anniversary, the speeches, the wine, the decorations, it didn't matter. Everything was over. Our family was forever changed. After Karen dropped the second bomb, the room erupted, but not in the way you'd expect at a party. People weren't cheering or laughing nervously, they were whispering frantically, shaking their heads, and some were straight up backing away like the air had gone toxic. Linda sat down hard, her hands covering her face. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. I don't know what to say," she stammered. Her voice cracked every time she tried to speak. My dad looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "This isn't fair, Karen. You're lying," he said, though the words sounded hollow, even to him. Karen shot him a look that could freeze fire. "Lying, Dad. I have the proof. Every email, every bank transfer, every secret you thought no one would ever find out about. It's all here. You built your perfect little image on a mountain of lies, and now it's crumbling." Uncle Jeff finally stood up. "Michael, you've got a lot of explaining to do," he balked. "People are staring. How could you live like this?" My cousin Mark, phone still in hand, whispered to me, "This is going viral. Trust me." I wanted to tell him to stop, but honestly, I couldn't even process what was happening. At one point, my grandma, who had been quietly watching, leaned forward and said in this calm but deadly tone, "Michael, you're Linda and this family a lifetime of truth. This is unforgivable." Dad tried to defend himself again, but every word sounded weaker than the last. He opened his mouth to speak, then just closed it again, probably realizing there was no excuse that could fix this. Karen then started pacing a little, her phone still out, showing more messages. "And don't think this ends here. Every lie you told, every secret you hid, it all comes out. Tonight was just a taste." Some of the guests had quietly started recording or taking pictures. I could see some people whispering to others, shaking their heads, clearly horrified. Linda finally spoke again, this time addressing Karen directly. "Why? Why choose tonight? Couldn't you wait, couldn't you?" Karen looked her dead in the eye. "Tonight was perfect. Why? Because tonight, everyone sees what you've been protecting. I'm done letting lies fester while people suffer, and maybe now, just maybe, the family can start being honest." I could feel the tension in the room tighten like a knot. Some guests were whispering behind their hands, some were glaring at my dad, and a few would just stare, frozen in disbelief. And then, the first person got off the cater. He cleared his throat nervously. Maybe I should start cleaning up." The awkwardness of that sentence got through the tension like a knife. Everyone laughed nervously, not because it was funny, but because the reality was unbearable. Karen finally lowered her phone and sat back down, calm now, like she'd just completed a mission. She looked at me and whispered again, "This is only the beginning." I realized in that moment that our family would never be the same. The anniversary wasn't just ruined, it was exposed for what it truly was, a house of lies, carefully constructed over 2 decades, now crumbling under the weight of one fearless teenager's revenge. After the initial chaos died down, the room settled into this weird, tense silence. People were whispering in corners, sipping their wine like nothing had happened, but you could feel the weight of what Karen had just done hang in the air. The anniversary decorations, gold ribbons, sparkling lights felt almost mocking now, like a stage set for a play that had gone horribly wrong. Linda finally stood, wiping tears from her cheeks. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "Michael, I need the truth. No excuses, no lies, everything." My dad swallowed hard, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. "Linda, it's not what you think. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was helping." Karen rolled her eyes so hard it was almost audible. "Helping? Seriously? You call sneaking around behind Mom's back helping? Every lie you told? Every dollar you spent hiding your secret life? How's that helping?" Linda shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe you, after 20 years, after everything we've built." She choked on her words, clearly struggling to process everything. Dad's shoulders slumped. "I was scared of losing you, scared of what everyone would think. I thought I could manage it. I thought I could fix it quietly." Karen's expression softened slightly, but the fire in her eyes didn't fade. "You thought you could manage it, Dad. This isn't about managing. This is about honesty. You've stolen years from Mom, from this family, and now everyone knows. You have to face the consequences." Linda's voice was almost a whisper now, broken. "Karen, I don't even know who to believe anymore." Karen turned toward me briefly. "I've done my part. Now it's up to them to deal with the truth." At that moment, my Uncle Jeff stepped in, trying to mediate. "Linda, take a deep breath. Michael, we need to hear you out, but Karen's right. The truth needs to come out, now." My dad nodded, slowly defeated. He sat down, burying his face in his hands. "Right, I'll tell you everything, I promise." For the first time all night, Karen sat quietly, almost like she was giving him space to speak. But you could tell she wasn't done. Her revenge wasn't just about exposing secrets, it was about forcing him to finally confront them, to finally feel the weight of his actions. Linda finally took a shaky breath and sat across from him. Michael, I want to know everything, no lies, no sugarcoating, just the truth. Dad looked at Karen, who gave him a single nod, like permission. He took a deep breath and started talking. Names, dates, accounts, messages, all of it spilled out over the next 20 minutes. Family listened, some in horror, some in disbelief, and some in silent anger. Karen leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. But I could see its satisfaction mixed with sadness. She didn't enjoy hurting people, but she had finally reclaimed the power that my dad had stolen with his lies. By the end of the night, the anniversary wasn't a celebration anymore, it was a reckoning. And Karen, my stepsister, 19 years old, had orchestrated it perfectly. The next part of the night was quieter, but heavier. S lingered awkwardly, sipping wine or nibbling at dessert, pretending to enjoy themselves while the tension hovered like smoke. The anniversary hall no longer felt festive, it felt like a courtroom. Linda sat at the main table, her face pale and exhausted, while Dad slumped beside her, clearly broken. Karen stayed at our table, arms crossed, watching everything with that same calm intensity she always had when she was planning something. I could tell she wasn't gloating, she was waiting for the moment when the family could finally process the truth. Finally, my Aunt Diane leaned over to me. I've never seen Karen like this. She's fierce. I nodded, unable to speak, still reeling from everything she uncovered. After a long pause, Karen finally spoke, standing up again. Look, I'm not here to humiliate anyone just for fun, she said, her voice surprisingly soft now. I did this because the truth matters. Lies can fester for years, and they destroy people quietly. Tonight, it all came out. Some of the guests nodded quietly, others avoided her gaze. My cousin Mark muttered under his breath, she's terrifying, but right. Linda, still shaking, finally said, Karen, you made them see. I don't know if I can forgive your father, but thank you for your honesty. Karen gave a small nod. Don't thank me yet, this isn't over, not really, but at least the family can start healing with truth instead of pretending everything is perfect. Then she looked directly at my dad, her voice cold again. And you, Dad, don't think for a second that this ends tonight. You have to live with what you've done. Every lie, every secret is part of your life now, and I'll make sure you remember that. Dad didn't answer. He just buried his face in his hands, finally confronting the consequences of decades of deception. Karen turned back to me and whispered, You'll see, things will change. We might be a broken family, but we won't be a family built on lies anymore. By the end of the night, the party had completely dissolved. Guests quietly left, some offering hugs or awkward handshakes. The anniversary decorations were still sparkling under the lights, but now they felt almost ironic, like reminders of what the family had pretended to be. Karen didn't celebrate. She didn't smile or dance. She simply sat back, watching the fallout, satisfied that the truth had finally come to light. I realized then that she had orchestrated the perfect revenge not for selfish reasons, but to protect the people she cared about from continuing a life built on lies. As we left the hall, I glanced at her. She looked tired, but determined. I didn't say anything, but I understood. Karen had changed the course of our family forever, and there was no turning back. For the first time in years, it felt like maybe, just maybe, honesty would finally guide us instead of deception. And it all started with my stepsister, 19 years old, fearless and unstoppable. The weeks after the anniversary were surreal. The house felt different, like a storm had passed and left a strange calm in its wake. But unlike normal calm, this one was layered with tension, awkward conversations, and unspoken accusations. Dad barely left his room for the first few days. Linda moved between rooms, quietly rearranging things, as if trying to put pieces of her life back together physically, when emotionally, nothing felt whole. Karen, meanwhile, was the only one walking around with purpose, talking to family members, friends, and even some guests who had texted asking what had happened that night. She wasn't seeking praise, she was making sure the truth stayed visible. One evening, I found myself sitting with her on the porch. She was scrolling through her phone, looking at all the texts, screenshots, and recording sheets saved from the anniversary. It's exhausting, I said, unsure why I felt compelled to talk to her. She shrugged. Yeah, but someone had to do it. He's been lying for 20 years. Mom deserves better. Everyone deserves to know the truth, even if it hurts. I nodded. I realized she wasn't just angry, she was protective. Fierce in a way that scared people, but also saved them from more years of manipulation. Family dynamics shifted quickly. Some relatives quietly took sides. Some still avoided Dad altogether. A few, like Aunt Diane and Uncle Jeff, tried to mediate, encouraging Linda to focus on herself and the kids rather than confront every detail of Dad's secrets immediately. One night, Dad finally came out of his room. He looked smaller somehow, defeated. Karen, I don't know how to fix this, he said, his voice barely audible. Karen met his gaze, unwavering. You don't get to fix it, you get to live with it. Apologize. Face the truth, and maybe, just maybe, you can start to rebuild what you've destroyed. Linda was there too, silent, listening. She finally spoke, soft but firm. We can't go back to how things were, Michael, but we can choose to be honest from now on, that's all I ask. It wasn't easy. Family dinners were awkward. Conversations often ended in silence. But Karen made sure lies didn't creep back in. She'd confront little half-truths, subtle deceptions, or secrets that popped up. The fear she instilled in Dad was quiet but constant. Slowly, over time, we started to rebuild a bit differently. Trust had to be earned again, and the anniversary had changed everything. Some bonds were stronger, like between Linda and Karen. Others were strained beyond repair. But one thing was clear, the web of lies that had dominated our family for decades had been ripped apart, and it was all because of Karen. And as I watched her quietly organizing documents, setting boundaries, and holding everyone accountable, I realized something profound. My 19-year-old stepsister had done what adults couldn't. She had turned chaos into accountability, fear into truth, revenge into clarity. Our family would never be the same, but for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we could survive it. And Karen, she was the reason